Welcome to Audio Stories of the Paranormal. You can find us at theaudiostories.com. I'm J.B. Simeon. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Unexplained Incidents. I think you will enjoy it. Our first experience comes to us from John B. It's called, I Wasn't Scared Then, But I Am Now. Okay, let's learn something. It was 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Everyone in the house but me was asleep. I took a break from the video game that I was playing to get a beer from the kitchen. At night, the only light I keep on in the house is in the hallway. That light is just a dim night light plugged into the wall socket. I'd gotten my beer and I was returning to my room. Passing through the hallway this time, I got a strange feeling that I was being followed. Plus, the light in the hallway had brightened beyond dim. I slowly turned around. I could see a luminous, misty, white blob floating directly behind me. It looked and floated in the air like a jellyfish floats on the ocean. I wasn't scared because, for a short while, I thought I was dreaming. So I reached out my hand to touch the blob, and it backed up. I took a step toward it again, and it backed up. However, this time I thought I could see my face on its surface. I stopped and just stared. I was curious about what it could be. I had the feeling that it was intelligent and curious about me also. We spent at least 2 minutes just assessing each other. Then it floated through the roof. I don't think it was a ghost. It was some type of intelligent being. I wasn't scared then, but I am now. I wonder what it is. Why was it in my house? And is it coming back? Our next experience is called A New Friend. It's from Cynthia T. I leave my job at 10 p.m. on weekdays. I have to take 2 buses to get home. At that time of night, one of the bus stops that I wait at is isolated and lonely. Very few people are around. Often I am alone there. I'm always happy when the bus arrives and I can get away from there. One night, I was waiting there with another lady about my age. We had a good conversation going about our favorite musical groups and TV shows. We sat there for 20 minutes or more. We were the only 2 people at the bus stop that night. When my bus arrived, I was happy to discover that she was also taking the same bus. I thought maybe I could make her a friend. I went on the bus first, and she followed close behind me. I paid my fare and grabbed the first 2 open seats for us. As I sat down and looked back for my new friend, she wasn't on the bus. I looked to the bus stop, and she wasn't there either. As the bus driver pulled away, I asked him what happened to the woman who was behind me. He said, I was the only person at the bus stop when he arrived, and no one got on with me. As I was riding the bus home, I was replaying the entire situation in my mind. On the back of the driver's stall, I noticed a public service posting for a missing person. The person was the woman I had spoken with at the bus stop. She was last seen at that stop. I'm still using that stop now, but I worry I might run into her or her killer. Our next experience is called The Dumping Ground. It's from Tracy W. I inherited some land in the country from my father. Until 3 months ago, I had only been out to visit the land twice. The location is beautiful. It's 40 acres of trees on a small lake. It was once a summer camp for a church. I packed up my kids and we set out to spend the weekend on the site. We set up our tents along the lake and settled in. The first day, the kids went swimming and exploring the land. They were having a great time. Late that afternoon, my daughter stumbled onto a small, overgrown graveyard. I was unaware that one had been on the property, so guided by them, I went to see what they discovered. We found gravestones from the 1830s up to the 1920s. We also found that someone had dug fresh graves only a few weeks old. We packed up and headed home. A few days later, the county sheriff discovered that someone had been using our land as a dumping ground. They found the bodies of 18 men and women who had been buried over 12 years. They were able to identify several of the missing persons. The remainder is still a mystery. They haven't found the person or persons who did this. On the way home from the discovery of the new graves, my oldest daughter looked at a photograph she had taken from the graveyard on her phone. A few of the photos showed the shadow of a woman in modern clothing staring at the camera. Our next experience is called Scratching at My Door. It's from Sam M. Last Sunday, I was watching the Seahawks football game on TV when my dog started scratching on the door for me to let him into the house. I didn't want to miss one moment of the game, so I made my son get off the couch and let Hero in. As he was walking to the door, he spotted Hero laying under the coffee table. He pointed him out, and then he went to the door to find out who was scratching. There was no one at the door. We agreed then that it must have been the wind. As we continued to watch the game, we heard scratching again, this time with barking. My son and Hero both got up to investigate. When the door opened, my son found no one was there again. But this time, Hero ran outside barking and growling, as though he was chasing something. My son called Hero back into the house, and we all settled down to watch the game again. A short time later, we heard scratching and barking at the door again. Hero went to the door this time and growled at whatever it was outside. Then, whatever it was outside growled at Hero, and that growl was so ferocious it scared me and my son also. Hero retreated and hid under the coffee table. I sheepishly peeped out of the window and thankfully found nothing. Our next experience is called The Painting Changes. It's from Felix A. In her bedroom, my grandmother hung a painting of a rural landscape. The landscape shows a cottage on the edge of an open field. An ocean was far in the background. Because I spent so much time with her when I was small, I noticed something odd about the painting. First, over an extended period of time, the seasons changed. Animals, plant, and people appeared and disappeared from the painting. Sometimes the field was planted, sometimes it was harvested, sometimes it was empty. Sometimes the ocean was calm, and other times it was stormy. The weather at times had rain, snow, or clear skies. It appeared to be more of a window on a distant world than a painting. In the painting, people moved very slowly. They were living in another dimension. I asked my grandmother about their world. She said that it was my imagination. The rest of the family thought so also. They said that the painting always looked the same to them. When my grandmother passed away, the family had many disagreements about who inherited what property. The only thing that I wanted was that painting. It hangs now in my bedroom. In the painting, the seasons, the weather, the ocean, the landscape, and the people still change over time. Recently, a new person appears to be living in the cottage. She looks just like my grandmother. For those who are streaming this show, there will be a short commercial break here. Then the audio stories of the paranormal will continue. For those who have downloaded this show, we will continue in a few seconds. Thank you. Our next experience is called An Embarrassing Story. It's from Gina C. I recently checked into a bed and breakfast in Savannah, Georgia. When I was checking in, the clerk warned me that he had placed me next to a room that was undergoing repairs. So please call the desk if it gets too noisy, he said. Not a problem, I told him. I'm just here for the night. It was already late afternoon. I went to my room and dropped off my bags. Soon I was bored, so I looked around the house. Out of curiosity, I decided to check out the room they were repairing. The door was locked. The house, though, has original skeleton keys for all rooms, so I peeped through the keyhole. The room was empty. It had no furnishings, but a young woman was sitting on the far side of the room in a rocking chair, looking out of the window. That was weird, I thought. Was that my imagination? I looked through the keyhole again. This time we met eye to eye. Startled, with a quick apology made through the door, I retreated to my room. The next morning, a new clerk was on duty. I told her the whole embarrassing story. I asked that she give the occupant a note with my written apologies. The clerk said, "No worries, ma'am. There was no one in that room. We don't rent it out because our guests complain that it's haunted." Our next experience is called The Phone Call. It's from Harry W. In June 2017, my brother died of kidney failure. We were not only siblings, but we were also best friends. We made a pledge to each other when we were kids that if one person died before the other, then that person would send a message from beyond the grave to prove that the afterlife exists. A month after his death, I received a strange phone call. The caller ID revealed that it was my brother's telephone. Then I answered. I only heard noises and someone speaking distantly in the background. Whoever was speaking was being washed out by the loud, noisy static coming over the phone line. It was a very bad connection, the type of bad connection you hear in old movies. I couldn't make out what was being said because of all the noise. Then it was disconnected. I called the number back, but I got an out-of-service notice. I had the feeling that Mike was trying to keep our bargain. When my brother passed, I settled his estate. One of the things I did was end his phone service. I kept his old phone in a plastic container in my storage unit. The next day, I dug it out and found, as I suspected, that it had no charge and had not been used. My phone has the date and time to prove that I received a phone call. I still don't know if it was actually from my brother. Our final experience is called The Field Trip. It's from Mavis T. When I was in the 6th grade, my class had a field trip to a historic home in our town. The home was an old Victorian set on 3 acres of landscape property. My class divided into smaller groups to tour the house and the gardens. On the tour of the house, I heard someone playing the piano. A little further on the tour guide made the comment that some guests claimed to hear a piano playing while they were on the tour. She asked if anyone was hearing piano music. No one raised their hand, so I kept quiet too, but I did ask her why did they hear the music. She said people who hear the music had psychic abilities and the ghosts who haunt the house are trying to communicate with them. The entire time I was in the house, I heard the piano playing, but I didn't experience anything else paranormal. All right, all you paranormals, this concludes our episode. Thank you to all community members who shared their stories. If you'd like to comment on the stories in this episode, or if you have a paranormal experience that you'd like to share with the community, please email me at feedback@theaudiostories.com. You can also submit your story through the Audio Stories submission form on the home page. Next, if you enjoy these stories, please help the community grow by sharing them with your family and friends. It's easy. Visit the audiostories.com, locate the story that you all want to hear, and press play. Finally, when you're on our homepage, you'll also find links to our merchandise store where you can purchase cool swag and help us continue to produce the show. You are our main source of support, so thank you. This concludes the show. I thank you all for listening to Audio Stories of the Paranormal. I'm J.B. Simeon. I'll see you next week with a new episode. Until then, be aware, be cautious, and take care.